Tata, I was just wondering, Babuji was from the north and our family is from the south. How did Sahaj come into our family?
Well, it's a strange thing, you know. My father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, was interested in homeopathy. He used to work in Calcutta during the war years. And there he picked up homeopathy. And in Madras, we had one Mr. Veera, who was also a homeopath. So they used to get together quite often. You know, we came into Gayatri on 11 September 62. 9/11, according to the US. And Veera and he somehow became friends. So he used to come to discuss homeopathy and all sorts of things. He was much younger than my father. And one day he looked at the books I had and he said, "You are reading so much about all these things, why don't you do something?" I said, "Well, you know, I am doing something but on my own because I have not been able to find anybody to guide me." He said, "I have somebody who is our guide. If you like, you can do it." But he never mentioned anything more. Actually, a couple of weeks later, Babuji has come to Madras and gone without our knowing it. Next year, he mentioned that his guru is again there. And that year also we missed. Because what is guru? We thought it's another Vaishnava saint or not saint, Pujari or priest or something. And he also made a mistake of telling us after Babuji had come and gone. He only stayed a day or two. Because only Veera and another person are basis. Then third year, he told me this is coming on such and such a day. Then we went. But in the meantime, we started meditation. It was on Basant Panchami day in 1964. My father started meditation with Veera, who had just been made a preceptor. I had to go to Bombay. I went on duty and came back, I think, a week later. Then I started. But even though my father was my senior by a week, I saw Babuji first because I went to North India, to Bareilly. And Rajagopalachari is just, I think, 50 miles from there, further east. So I went and met Babuji Maharaj, and that is how we started Sahaj first and then met Babuji. And I'm happy to say you are the fourth generation of Abhyasis in our family. Starting with my father was number one, first generation. Followed my brother, myself, we are second generation. Krishna, Narayan, they are all the third generation. You are the fourth generation. It is still the only family in the world with 4 generations of Sahaj Margis, our family. You see? That's something I'm very happy about. Not for myself, but that my succeeding generations have also come into it. And hopefully the next generation will also follow. See? In Tamil we say Vazhai Adi Vazhai, meaning below the banana plant grows the next banana plant. Vazhai Adi Vazhai. So Talamure after Talamure, family, what you call generation after generation. It should follow like that. That was Babuji's hope, expectation and blessings. Anything else? You see, we've come from a background of agriculturists like this, although we are Brahmins. My paternal grandfather, we are in Trichy district now, just beyond the fence at the other end of the association, what they call colony, Pudukkottai district starts. We are at the edge of Trichy district, and if you go a little south, Pudukkottai district. My grandfather was in Pudukkottai. He was a professor of chemistry in the Maharaja's College, which I believe is still there and still going strong. And they were all very orthodox according to the Vaishnava traditions. On my mother's side, my grandfather was an agriculturist. He was a government officer, but he had big estates near Mayavaram, which is about what, 3 hours from here, 4 hours from here by road. So I used to go there. My paternal grandfather died when my father was 14. When my father was 9. He passed away in 1914. My father was born in 1905. My uncle Chakra's father, Bhaktu, was just been born when Chakrapani Maharaj was called passed away. So in his memory only Chakra is called Chakrapani. So we are a blend of the intellectual, highly traditional Vaishnavite agriculture. That's why we have this small farm here for ourselves to combine everything here. And my mother's statue you will see later. Her name was given to this farm in her honor because she bore me. So I thought I should honor her memory. Unfortunately, nobody honors the father. I don't know why. It's only the mother we always remember, And that is also in our Vedic tradition. Matra Devo Bhava comes first. May you look upon your mother as divine. Then Pitra Devo Bhava. See? Then Acharya Devo Bhava. Then Atithi Devo Bhava. See? So this was named in honor of my mother. So that is how we are known. Like the salmon which goes back from the ocean to the place of its birth to spawn, After wandering around the world, doing so many things, we are back with our old traditional way of life, combining Sahaj Marg, which has evolved out of religion, beyond religion, not out of, beyond religion, and combining it with a sort of agricultural life, which is peaceful, where you can eat fresh things. Today's banana plucked from the plant and eaten just then. Today's banana raw cut from the tree plant and cooked. Today's ladies' fingers cooked. Fresh milk from our own cows, no pasteurization, So this you can't get in city life. So we combine the best of two worlds, the spiritual and the material. And Sahaj Marg says a bird flies on 2 wings. Spiritual and material. So we have, in a sense, we are combining that here. And I hope all of you will stick to this tradition because you are still too young for me to say anything with the conviction that she will be like this. Every tradition, every established way of life, we have to preserve. Traditions are not preserved by themselves. You see, like fruit is not preserved by itself. You have to make a jam out of it or pickle it, That's why they are called preserves in English. So tradition has to be protected and preserved by us. But language of beauty has to be preserved by us. Culture has to be preserved by us. And our inner spiritual life has to be preserved by us. So nothing survives in this world unless we preserve it. You understand? That is why we start this Vedic training in our old traditional way. From the age of 7, it is called Garbhashtakam. The child spends 1 year in its mother's belly and comes out. So that is taken as the first year of its life. Garbhashtakam means 8th year. So all these literature, Sanskrit literature, Vedic tradition, they are begun when the child is 7. Veda Parayana should start there. Upanayanam is there at age 7. So, see, tradition, of course, there are people who say, well, then there's never any change. But we have seen how we have changed by only changing our clothes. Sahaj Marg has not thrown anything away except the outward trappings of religion, the traditional, nuances and systems and worship. But that tradition also says in the Bhagavad Gita, you worship me inside your heart. You don't have to go to temples, isn't it? So how we have preserved it is we have preserved the seed. It's like a man traveling and he carries a packet of seeds to sow in the next house he will buy. He doesn't carry trees around with him. See? When we carry religion with us from generation to generation, We are carrying trees and of course they are dead. Seeds never die. Seeds have no life. The life is inside. They don't rot if you keep them dry. Tutankhamun's tomb, they had seeds 4,000 years old. And when they were planted, they grew, they sprouted. Life is always dormant. That is the power of nature, that it is able to preserve in seed form what we are trying to preserve in gross form. Every idea of protecting life, culture, tradition, language, anything, is we are applying it to the gross, whereas nature applies it to the subtlest. It preserves the seeds, we preserve the trees. And of course, when you cut down the trees, you cut down the possibility of future seeds. That is why it is also necessary to preserve this until we have enough seeds. Then, they can go. So, Sahaj Marg is implanted in bija, you see, as Babuji used to say. Bija means seed in Sanskrit. So, the first transmission that we receive from the Master is the transmission which is planted in the heart and which awakens that tiny divine light, see, which is called the, what do you call it? Divine light. Ishwariya. So it is not lit again, because it's always, if it was not there, we would not be alive. It is just, like when in the old way, when we used to live in village houses, we had these kerosene lamps. At night, we would bring down to the lowest where they are still lit and leave them. So that at night, if you wanted to go out, you just pulled up the wick a little and it gave you bright light. So this light is like that. Through generations of human beings in the same family, it goes on and on. One day there is this divya sparsha or divine touch, and that light comes up again. Then it goes by itself. That is how divinization is the process in Sahaj Marg. And then every time we give further transmissions, it makes that divine light a little stronger and stronger until it illuminates from within. That is how the halo has come into being represented around saintly heads. They always know this like a full moon. That is called a halo. So, if that lamp is never brightened again, being divine, it cannot go out. Nobody can put it out. That is why we say every human heart has some divinity in it, even if he is the most hardened criminal. And it only needs the divine touch to awaken it. And the criminal becomes a saint. That is the Sahaj Marg tradition. What, Madhava, any questions from you?
What to ask you
Early life, everything, all the bonding takes place. Why a man says at 60 that his mother's cooking was the best? It need not have been factually the best. But for him it was the best. Because he is bonded with his mother from childhood, from babyhood, from the day of birth. So mother tongue, the language in which she speaks to him. Suppose there is an intermarriage between a Tamilian and a Telugu, and the mother is a Tamil. The child's mother tongue will definitely be Tamil, however much the father may try to convert it. Because that is the mother tongue. That's what the child has learned to love, to trust. Trust is a great thing in preserving. You don't preserve something which you don't trust. Preserve this book, you won't say, of a James Bond novel. Because it is read once and thrown away. But preserve this dictionary because you need it all the time for reference. Preserve this Bible because it is forever. Nobody throws away a Bible or a dictionary. But James Bond novels, you read and leave it behind on the plane if you are on a flight. Who's to carry that dead weight around? You see? So when we read the same thing again and again, and people have trusted it from generation to generation, it becomes historical, it becomes factual, it becomes myth, it becomes mythology, it becomes tradition. So now you find in the Mosaic tradition how Moses led the people out of Egypt. Okay, that is credible, that is scientific. But that he parted the ocean to let his people go out of slavery, it's a bit difficult to swallow, unless you are a Jew. The Jews implicitly believe in it. Why? Because it's their tradition. And only an unbeliever disbelieves tradition. So unbelievers are not unbelievers because they are unbelievers, because they fight tradition. You understand? And those who are not in that tradition automatically disbelieve. For them it's not rational, not scientific, so many things. So with Sahaj Marg too, when people say, oh, I don't believe this transmission, what is it to transmit? Oh, the Master says, it is transformation is the change of something, making a new form where it was. And there's a big deal. How do you do it? He says transmission. What is transmission? Utilization of divine energy for the transformation of man. You are answering one question with another answer which will be questioned again. Yeah, but what is divine energy? So you see, when you don't belong to the tradition, you keep on asking questions. And by repeatedly asking questions, you believe less and less of what you are told and more of what you doubt. You follow? Every question you ask hardens your unbelief or disbelief. And every time you resist the question and accept what is said, your belief is strengthened more and more. So to ask too many questions is as if it is weakening your will to accept. So Babuji did not advise questions except vital questions, as I keep telling everybody. Why vital questions? What are vital questions? If you ask, does God exist? It's a foolish question. Vivekananda asked it from his master Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna said, yes. He is as visible to me as you are. I can touch him like I touch you. Then Vivekananda is said to have asked, can you show me? And Ramakrishna just put his big toe on his heart, on his heart. And the world attained illumination. But then Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, I will take this back. It is locked up in a safe for you. You shall not have it during your lifetime. Because you have come not for pleasure, even spiritual, but to work for the divine. And Vivekananda bewails his fate, you see, that having got this, I have lost it again. So Paramahamsa says, you have not lost it, my son. It is there waiting for you. When your work is over and you are released from this earth, you will attain that condition instantly. That is what Babuji Maharaj calls approach. Your approach to Brahmanda or your approach to Parabrahmanda. It's like buying a ticket today for travel next year. I have the approach, which means I have the possibility. I have it in my hand. Now, if we change our plans in between, I may not use the ticket again. Same thing happens. What we call dangers of fall are nothing but changes we create without his will. And we say, oh, well, he has locked up that condition for me. And then we start leading a new life, different from our prescription. It's like a doctor says, you have 20 doses of this, you are cured, no cancer. And the patient says, oh, wonderful, and leaves the medicine and starts whatever it was, smoking, whatever, and dies. And the patient says, but you said I would leave. He said, yes, I told you to stick to the medicine. You have forgotten it, no? How can I say anything now? So it remains locked up. The approach is still there, and then you are given another lifetime to try to come back to that path. See? So future lifetimes are ours only because we have decided like that. I am always wanting to tell people that God has nothing to do with this. There is no punishing God or, giving God. We punish ourselves, we reward ourselves by our thoughts, by our actions. And God is there waiting. When will the Son of Man return? That is why in Christianity you have the return of the prodigal son. And for him, the fattened calf is killed and cooked. He's given a new coat. He's received with embraces and kisses. And another brother is jealous. He says, I have served you faithfully at home, father, and I get nothing. He says, my son, you had me all along. He lost me. Should I not welcome him back? So you see, this prodigal son return is a great event. And we too are like that. Suppose a child is lost coming home from school. And 8 hours later you find it. How much you hug and kiss that child and make much of it. And the child at home says, well, I never get a welcome like this. But then we say, you are never lost. Thank heavens. And the child says foolishly, I wish I were. Then I would also get a hug and a lot of kisses and a new coat. You understand? So the idea is not to get lost. To be with the Father is the greatest blessing. Not to have something from Him. So these sort of stories are many, you see. We have them in the Gita, we have them in the Bible. But then at a human level, jealousy comes. He gets always, I get nothing. The child who comes first always, well, okay, I'm happy you did it again. That's it. But a fellow who's failed 3 times, he gets just a pass and goes promoted. And they make payasam and vada and everything for him. And the other child says, but Dad, every year I'm first. So often people associate a certain sense of injustice with this sort of behavior. That a failure is rewarded when he becomes successful. But a successful person is never rewarded because he's always successful. See? And I found this once when Justice Chaturvedi came. He used to come to Basant. And he had one room in a corner of Babuji's house. And he came, went to his room, he just did this to Babuji sitting there on the veranda. And Babuji raised. That was that. Then this man was there, going like that, giving sittings to some people who came to see him. I asked Babuji, this man is very devoted, one of your very senior preceptors. When he comes, he does this. When he goes, he does this. And you're also sitting and doing this. You never even look after him, think of him. He said, he is mine. What is there I should do? You see? This happens in every family. You praise the next door child. Your wife will ask you, but you never praise our children. See? And you say, but honey, my children are my children. They don't need praise. They need praise. I pay the coolie to bring my bag, but if my son brings it, should I pay him? Then it means I'm treating him as a coolie, see, not as my son. But it's very difficult to understand. So, you see, do you want to be a servant or a son? Do you want to be a daughter or a maidservant? Because the moment you are paid for service rendered within a loving family, you are reducing yourself, cheapening yourself to that level. And so in the Christian tradition, they say, your reward is there. If you received your reward here, thou shalt not receive your reward there. For no action can be rewarded twice. You choose, do you want it here or do you want there? No? Do you want a new car or a new sari or whatever? Or do you want to be blessed there, which is eternal? And most of us are too foolish and say, yes, I want it now. Give me the car. That will look after itself. You see? So the foolishness of human beings is not in asking for this or that, but for asking for short-lived blessings rather than eternal blessings. A car against peace in eternity, gold against, a divine presence in front of the divine, all your future existence. It is not the thing which is to blame. It is my choice that is to be blamed. You follow? Therefore, all sin is in choosing the wrong thing. In my opinion, there is no wrong or right in any action that we take. Even lying, I choose to lie to get something is a short-term choice which can be taken away from me. And God says, my son, I have given you intelligence and you chose wrong. This is short-lived. If discovered, you will be defamed, you lose your honor, you might even go to jail. It's your doing. Why do you do it? By ignoring the long-term reward that you are due. See? In anything, there is no sin except the sin of wrong choice. For me, virtue is right choice, sin is wrong choice. You see? So it's a very simple equation, no? I'm always reminded of this Christian 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. One American young man came and said, who is my neighbor's wife? The one on the right or the one on the left? I said, why this question? He said, no, but Chari, suppose I love a girl on the opposite side of the house who's married. Is she also a neighbor? So I said, all are our neighbors. That your next door neighbor is your neighbor is also defined by the word next door neighbor. Which means all are neighbors, but this one is next door. That neighbor is 3 doors away. The other neighbor is in the next street. The whole world is neighbors. So it means you shall not covet anybody who is not your wife. Oh heck, he said, a nice American boy. Oh heck. I said, yes, I know. Again, choice. See? Choose rightly. Choose one whom there is no sin associated with. See? Is this yours? Yes, take it away. No harm done, nobody can stop it. If that is not yours, don't touch it. Because culpability comes when the wrong choice is made to take what is not yours. But you told me everything in the world is mine. Spiritually speaking, yes. So long as you don't own anything, everything is yours. The moment you own, only that is yours. So even the Vedas say, one who has nothing has everything. And it's a sort of a conundrum, How can having nothing endow me with all possessions? Because potentially everything is mine. The moment I choose, all that potentially collapses into actuality. We come back again to the quantum field. There is nothing in the quantum field. But the moment my thought condenses that field into a collapsed stage where something is produced, I see a man, I see a tiger where it was not. I see a snake where it was not. You see how much powerful the human thought is. So Babuji said, thought power is the greatest power on earth. Next to divine power itself. Mano Shakti, Mano Bal, we call it in Sanskrit. That is why that power is sought to be regulated in meditation. By focusing that power again and again, nothing in it, all blank, we gain the ability to focus it on one special thing at any time and know everything about it. So they become all knowers. They become seers. Look and you see. There is no intermediate thought process to intervene, analyze, and then tell me, yes, this is that. This is that can only apply to the second generation, third generation, the succeeding generations of thinkers. What is that of which I say this is that? So there is always to be prior knowledge to say this is that. That prior knowledge we get from teachers, from books. Oranges are round. So every time I see something round, I say, Daddy, is that an orange? No, my son, that's a coconut. But you said everything that's round is a... Then you pick out a mango and say, this is round. Tennis ball, this is also round. Roundness is a characteristic. And that characteristic, orange also possesses. It is yellow or orange. What is orange? You see that dress that girl is wearing. That is, yellow, but... So you say round orange objects. Then he picks out a stone which is round and orange because it contains some chemical in the lava from which it was formed. You say, no, my dear boy, this has two characteristics, but it's not a fruit. So it's a round orange fruit. Then he brings something tangerine. You say, no, this has a different taste, it's harder. Oranges are softer. a fourth characteristic. Like this, you can introduce 5 characters, which represent the 5 senses. Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, essence, Rupa, form, and Gandha, smell. Orange smells different from mango. You recognize it in the dark room. Oh, there are mangoes here. So each of these senses can identify if that dominant sense is associated with something. So if suppose all round orange objects are the same smell would not be useful identifying. Then you have to bring into effect a second sense. You say taste is different. See? Suppose everything had the same taste, the same smell, the same form, the same touch. You cannot identify. So they're all the same because they have no different characteristics. You see? So to identify, you need a characteristic. Characters depend upon our sensory system. Without them, we cannot identify what characteristic this has. This is hard. This is soft. See? Sparsha. If you feel a female form in the dark and it is hard and cold, it is marble. You don't need science to tell you anything more. So these 5 senses transcend all knowledge because through these you have to know. But spirituality says that which we seek to know cannot be known by the senses. See? So the Vedas say this is apara vidya, non-eternal knowledge. The knowledge of this world, whether it's geography, philosophy, psychology, anything. That is para vidya, which is transcendental knowledge, which cannot be known through the senses, which cannot be known through learning, which cannot be seen, which cannot be smelled, which cannot be tasted. Therefore, the divinity of Sahaj Marg is not perceivable through the senses, cannot be seen, cannot be spoken with. So Babuji said, any tradition which speaks of God having spoken to man, ignore it. Any tradition which says, I saw God, ignore it. So I asked him, what about Ramakrishna saying this? He is as here as you are. He said, yes, God is always there. For one who can perceive His presence, not His form. We don't see God. When you smell an orange, you don't see the smell. You only smell it. Isn't it? So it is possible to know out of 5 senses through one sense. This can be known without any sense. What is the difficulty? Some you need all 5 senses. Some you need 4 senses. Music you need 1 sense. Taste you need 1 sense. No. Here, no sense. So formless, tasteless, attributeless. So we come to the definition of the divine presence. I can feel the wind, but I cannot see it. I cannot hold it. See? When we see it, it is because it's moving something. You are in the air-conditioned room, the leaves are wildly waving, and you say, oh, there must be a wind outside. And you feel cold inside your air-conditioned room, so you say it looks like a cold wind. But outside it's a desert, heat is blasting away. There the senses deceive us because we draw the wrong conclusion. From our circumstance, we see that circumstance and we equate the two. You follow? So in this sensory world, there are often more deceptions than we should have were we wise. A wise man would say, yes, all that you see is the wind blowing. How can you say it's cold or hot unless you go outside? So we call experience pratyaksha anumana, that is perceived actually, not reduced knowledge. There is no room for deduction in spirituality. God has been kind to him, God has been kind to him, God has been kind to her. No. So God must always be kind. No. God is neither kind nor cruel, because when you say he is cruel, this man, that is wrong. He is kind to him, that's also wrong. What is manifesting is your samskara. What is manifesting here is his samskara. But who made the samskaras? Does not God have it something? No. Your thoughts, your actions created your samskara. God is as much troubled as you are. So he sends a teacher who says, don't make samskaras. How to do it? Constant remembrance. In his remembrance, if you do, it has no effect on you. Because without thinking and without doing, you cannot be on earth. As Lord Krishna says in the Gita, even I cannot be idle for a second. I have to be active or this whole universe will collapse. See, like suppose the owner of this farm does his work in constant remembrance. 1 year good crop, 1 year moderate crop, he won't bother, This is what it is. Circumstances have created it. I am happy. After all, I am only one cog in this chain of farms and farm productions. There is the rain, there is the sun, there is the wind, they all play parts in it. Good rain, huge banana plantation. One heavy wind, they are raised to the ground. What can I do? I did my best. We call this taking it philosophical. How does this ability come? Because we do it in divine consciousness. Even this is his action. Because the Veda says, neither can the sun shine nor the wind blow without his orders. You see? Now if you go back to which is possibly the primal cause, it's the sun. Because it is the sun which creates the weather. It shines hot here, the wind rises because of the heat, fresh cold air comes in, that is how winds are created. And if this heat is too much and if this going up is too much, the air rushing is a storm. Without this, we would have no weather. So the primal cause is the sun. So in the Vedas, they worship the sun. See? They were logical in their own way, Yeah, but Chariji, how can you say the sun? Why not the moon? Because the moon only reflects the light of the sun. It has no light of its own. Like the saint only reflects the grace of God. Whatever he gives, he receives from God, he gives it to you. He has nothing of his own. It's like a distributor who obeys the king. The king says, on my birthday, distribute 2,000 kilograms of gold. It's not his gold, it's the king's gold. So knowing this, they worshipped the sun. Sun was the original, deity, Surya. So our tradition is as logical, as clinically logical, I should say, as anything that Western science has to offer. Only thing they say, yes, we can reproduce so that you can also have. Well, I'm also reproducing in my experience. 1 year there is no wind, there is no rain, no crops. So we need a combination of characteristics to bring about. We need our own effort. We need an opportunity to perform that effort in. And third element is the unseen element. God, who is adrishya, unseen. So the word adrishta, which means luck, is really the presence of the unseen with us at all times. When we say adrishtam sir, means God has been with you. Otherwise, why my farm is not your farm? Is circumstances are the same. Because you have not accepted that adrishta presence, you see, the unseen presence in your life. You claim it's all your work. So instead of that power, this power is aiding you, your ego. And your ego stands no chance, you see. So that is the justification for constant remembrance, for trusting and believing in God and ascribing everything to Him. Because it is now a concatenation of factors where God's presence decides how even these forces will work. When we were constructing the Shahjahanpur ashram, we had no big godown for the cement and all that. It's just a small tin shed with only half a roof. The rest was open to hire. And we had a big consignment of cement, 200 tons or something, which had just arrived. Pouring rain that night. And Babuji was sitting and saying, I'm praying that my cement does not all wash away. Next morning, much to everybody's astonishment, it was a miracle. Only over that area there had been no rain. Now a skeptical fellow, a scientist would say, oh, do you mean to say, Chari, that only around that circle there was no rain? He said, yes, no rain. It's a fact. You cannot accept it because you have no way of explaining it. We accept it because we have a ready explanation. He was there. Who's the she, Shri? I'm interested to. Well, God. Oh, come on. I thought you were an educated man. You don't believe in all this nonsense. Yes, but how to disbelieve what happens? That within a perimeter of, say, 100 yards around that, there was no rain. Can you believe it? Aurobindo had his ashram and he was in his room facing the ocean. It is said that even in the stormiest weather, his window used to be open and no rain would come in. Now you have these beautiful things in the malls in Europe and in the US. A straight curtain of air, hot air, which keeps the outside air from coming inside. This everybody believes because it is there. I see it, I perceive the heat. I hear the blow, it ruffles my hair. Therefore it is real. So for human beings, reality is what is perceivable by their five senses. But for the sage who doesn't trust his five senses and yet sees there's no wind blowing into Aurobindo's room or rain coming in, he perceives the unperceivable. He knows it is there, though he cannot see it, by the effect. So in the Indian philosophy, we assess things by the effect rather than by the cause. Western philosophy depends on cause and effect. Cause is first, effect is second. We have the cause, but we don't need the effects. Because when no effect is visible, perceivable, accountable, there can be one effect, only one cause, and that is the original cause. So we deduce this original cause from no cause. In this knowledge that there has to be a cause, though I don't see it. See? And that cause can only be him. You see how easy it is, how easily it is explained. So the Westerners, Western philosophy, Western science needs not only the five senses, but an acceptable cause. We have a cause which is acceptable. They want an acceptable cause. Inverted do. I gave you one example the other day. This is the second example. I have an acceptable cause. They want a cause which is acceptable. Acceptable by the intellect because of the sensory confirmation that that has or that gives. So what more to say of Sahaj Marg? And this is the tradition you have inherited in the fourth generation.
Master, I have two questions. The first one is, this is Janaki Farms and we have not really heard about your mother that much. What memories you have of her, if any, and how it influenced your life.
Well, it's a funny thing, but I was about 5 or a little more when my mother died. I have no memory of her at all. Except what I have written in Down Memory Lane. It is as if, even at that age, I pushed back all memory, out of a feeling of self-protection, because those memories were too hard to handle, perhaps. I have absolutely no memory of it.
But you have had some contact with her through whispers, though.
Yes, that's it. But that is in my 79th year. So in between, zero. Only, the affection that one feels, having seen or not seen, it doesn't matter.
So the second question I have is one related to, you said earlier that when you come, you have to choose between the Father. When you come to the Father, for most of us aspirants, when is enough in the material world?
I always tell people to read that story, Leo Tolstoy's How Much Land Does a Man Require? If you always remember that where we are going, we need nothing. We would try to do with the minimum here. Because however much you may amass, whether wealth or intelligence or whatever knowledge, everything is going to remain. And what is it that we are hoarding all this for, amassing and hoarding? I told you the other day that Babuji said, even your body you are going to leave. You are a tenant in this body. No? That's why we preserve it, we protect it, we enhance it in so many ways. Strengthening, beautification, cleanliness, so on and so forth. None of which should really matter. No? Because what goes up is nothing of these. Then what am I going on amassing crores and hundreds of crores and thousands of crores? A Rockefeller there, a Ford. It's all right to invent. Because that is a question of the genius of the mind. It's all right to grow things, own farms, you see. But not to amass, go on adding. Then it becomes like that fellow in Tolstoy's novel. The man runs round and round more and more and falls dead by the time he comes back to the hat at sunset. He has really owned nothing. So that is to teach us that however much you may really own, you own nothing, because when you leave, that's it. Those 1,000 acres, 5,000 acres are no more yours. Which means they never were, because they depended on your being here to be yours. So we must have this wisdom to think, it is mine only when I am here. So how does it matter whether it's mine or not? That's why Babuji said it's better to have rich friends than be rich yourself. I can come anywhere I like, whether it is your palace or his bungalow. And I am like you because I am your friend. I enjoy your food, I enjoy your bed, I enjoy your bathroom. Nothing is mine. So Babuji said, live in your own house as a guest. Which only means don't think this is mine. Follow. So that is the best way of conducting life. Live as if you own nothing. Wisdom, live as if you are going to die the next moment. Service, do as much as you can while you are yet here. For others, not for yourself. No? 3 principles which make life not only clear, easy and happy, but also a life of service to others. So as for my mother, one does not worry about what remembering or not. There have been children who were born and the mother died after giving birth. They never saw her. But yet that love for the mother is strong. Stronger than love for anything living. So it is almost, I should say, part of human nature. In the sense that nature designed it to be so. That one never forgets a mother. Whether one has seen her or not, lived with her or not, it doesn't matter. Whereas for every other relationship, you need knowledge, you need experience, and you need continuation of that experience as much as possible in our lives, so that those memories are strengthened. Now you find, a boy of 18 moves away to America. In a few years, he doesn't know his cousins, he doesn't know his, father and mother knows. If he lives 20 years and doesn't come back to India, when he comes after 20 years, he can't recognize his father, he can't recognize his mother. Though the mother will recognize. That is what happens in the Mahabharata, when the children come back, when they say, let us see if our mothers will recognize us. Which mother will not recognize her child? Whereas in the animal kingdom, when the kids are born, in the Wild West in the old days, buffaloes, they used to roam America in the millions. And the calf were born on the run. And if that calf couldn't stand on its own feet, in 2 minutes it was dead. And within those 2 minutes, it had to stand up and be able to run with its mother and feed on the run. And that was the bonding, And that calf could recognize its mother from 10,000 buffaloes, she buffaloes. There, the inverted noise, the child has to remember, for its own safety, for its own continuity in life. Here, the child doesn't know. You wean it away from the mother and put it for the, what they call, what do they call one? And they think that's the mother. So human nature is different. But yet that initial contact is what the psychologists call bonding. And recently they have found that it has nothing to do with this sense of smell or food or anything. It's the heartbeat. The child held close to the mother's heart, which almost seems to mean that it is the sign of its parentage. You put your, and this is my mother. And perhaps in some way our own heartbeat reflects that of the mother. And so through that we know the mother more than through the physical relationship. I don't know this, whether this is clinically true or psychologically true. But what is psychology except intuitively gathered knowledge? I mean, you have dreams and you prepare to analyze them and you see some dreams recurring again and again. And you say, well, this is the reason. Or like those dreams of Joseph, 7 lean years and 7 fat years. That was wisdom speaking. That a dream represents some aspect of reality. So a reading is always something interpreted through the medium of your reasoning abilities, which means you must have the wisdom to reason correctly and associate cause and effect properly.
Master, in the spiritual arena, an aspirant can really never be away from the Guru, even though they may go off the path a little bit. Is that correct?
Well, we are never away from the Master, taking God as the Master. Wherever we are, He is with us, whether we want Him or not. That's one problem for most people who want to follow a wrong path. There's a famous short poem, The Hound of God. This is a fellow woodcutter who goes into the forest every day. And he wants to be with God. That is his yearning. And one day he hears footsteps behind him. Being alone in the jungle, he is afraid. He walks faster and the steps follow faster. He runs and the steps run after him. And finally he collapses because of fatigue and falls. And then he sees the divine presence. He says, my son, you have been running away all your life from me. He says, but I was now running towards you. God says, you are running in the wrong direction. I was always there, yet you are always going away from me, thinking you are looking for me. Where was the need to look? And as Babuji said, if you had just turned around, you would have found me. And he says, God, why did you not tell me? He said, when I just followed you, you got afraid. If you could have heard me, what would you have done? No. So it is until you are elevated to a position where you can perceive God and not be afraid. Because again and again in the Bible you find a reference to something and they hide their faces, you see, whether it's shame or guilt or fear. When you hide your face, it's either for shame or for guilt or because of fear. There's no fourth. So ipso facto, if anybody is there and he doesn't want to see you and he sees you coming and moves away, then one of these 3 factors in him, surely. No, sir, I just turned away because I didn't want to bother you. Lie. See? I mean, you don't need to be a spiritual giant. I can tell you what everybody thinks just by looking at them. This morning, I told Sujata. She was astonished. There's nothing to it. It just comes out, So they speak of saints telling only the truth. They don't tell the truth or the lie or anything. They open their mouths and the truth comes out. Like you open the tap and water comes out. It's as simple as that. That's why Babuji said, our priests and our teachers have complicated the whole thing about God. They have written volumes about it when one word would have been enough. Exists. What exists? No answer. Why? Because everything that exists is He. Is this true God? Yes. That also, yes. And this mud, yes, of course. If that was not God, you wouldn't be able to stand on it. So, existence. Does He know I'm here? Of course He does. Do these trees know? Of course. If they see you coming with the intent to cut down, they react. So, without God in them, how would they know? So, existence, consciousness. And yet bliss, because everything is happy except the human being. Why is he unhappy? Because he has desires. What are these desires? However much they are fulfilled, there is still a great deal unfulfilled. It is like a pot which you go on filling and which is never full. So there is no bliss in human life. There is existence, there is consciousness, no bliss. Therefore, we are always saying towards bliss. Where they are with God eternally, we have to be with God now consciously, knowingly, and with effort. That is where yoga comes in to link us back to divinity. You see, for having strayed from the divine realm, lost that bliss of being together, is like a child which wanders in the fair and is weeping inconsolably because it has lost its mother. Mother is there, child is there. She is weeping, he is weeping. See? So existence, consciousness, Sat, Chit, Ananda we don't have. So the Vedas, the Upanishads go up to Anandam Brahmeti Vejanat. No Anandam to be Brahman. Babuji said, yes, but what beyond? There must be something beyond bliss. Because everything is eternal, everything is infinite. You cannot stop at a particular stage and say, now you have reached the end. See, evolution, whether divine or material, has no end. You cannot say, I have produced the best the camera. Next day you will produce something better. You may be able to produce a camera without a lens. You may make yourself the camera and look and blink and it's taken. Because you are touching a circuit which records. The human being becomes a camera. Who knows? It is not impossible. So you see, whether it is science or philosophy, there is no end to anything. And there was never really any beginning to anything either. What was man before? Darwin says he must have been a monkey. We don't like it. Before that, well, he was a vertebrate. Before that, he was an amphibian. Before that, he was in the sea. Before that, he was the mollusk. Before that, he was the ooze, primeval ooze. And before that, we don't know. God is like that. Anadi, Anantam. No beginning, no end. What was God before? Suppose your son asks you. Well, my son, God could not have been anything else because he was always God. Come on, Dad, everybody has to be something before. To be something now. This was a seed, now it is a tree. And then you say, okay, says, what was the seed before? Well, Daddy, it was the fruit in the tree. And before that, when there was no fruit, but Dad, it has to be there because it grew from, it could not have come from nowhere. That nowhere is divine. See? So from nothing it comes into being and goes back into nothingness. That is again the idea of life, of the evolving life. And quantum science says they seem to come into existence and disappear. Here science and spirituality think alike. But yet this is science and this is spirituality. For the scientist. For us, it's all the same. How do you know? They say, well, we see it on the, the trails on the camera plates. These particles leave behind. How are they made? Oh, the cyclotrons collision of particles. How do you know they collide? Well, there's the evidence on the camera plate. How do you know this is right? For heaven's sake, Shri, it's science, man. It has to happen. We programmed it. Yes, but in my quantum field, people come and go. What do you mean? Well, child was born. Where was it earlier? Science says in its mother's belly. How did it get there? They give you all this crap about concepts on it. The egg and the sperm. What was the life and where was it? Was it in the egg or was it in the sperm? Well, Shri, two things have to come together to produce the third. Wonderful science. So there is this eternal and I'm sure unending problem between science and spirituality. Because they believe in the invisible. But yet that invisible, if it did not leave a trace somewhere, they would not know. And they have the idea that some of these particles are moving backwards in time. But yet they scoff at science fiction. Because it is science but fiction. So these, they quarrel between diverging thoughts, diverging philosophies will go on perennially. I don't see them meeting, except at some future, maybe millennium, when they will say, yes, this is what we have all been talking about. Only thing, you called it science, I called it spirituality. It was both and it was neither. So Babuji says, is God Dvaita or Advaita? He says he can be what he wants when he wants. He can achieve a form if he wants it. He can remain invisible and unseen if he wants it. So he's either Dvaita or, what did I say? Advaita, depending on what he wants. Yes, but how can you do that, Chariji? How? It's not possible. Yes, but you have this split window experiment where it can go through this split or this split window. How do you decide where it goes? Yes, but that is random. Do you think it's really random? Well, come to think of it, no, actually, but there's no explanation. That is God. You mean to say God is sitting guiding these particles into where they should be going? Well, you have no explanation, but I have at least some explanation. Why don't you accept it? But it is irrational, Chariji. Gone. Science wins, spirituality wins. No, science has not won anything. See? So this is how it goes. Anything else? Okay, thank you.